I'm going to call the special regular session to order with roll call.
Mayor Van Gordon,
Here.
Counselor Weber,
Here.
Counselor Mo,
Here.
Counselor Rodley,
Here.
Counselor Blackwell,
Here.
and Counselor Stout.
Here, thank you. Neil, could you read the item, please?
Yes, we have one item on the special regular session. It's the interim Ward 5 Council Oath of Office. Mary Bridget Smith is here for this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to help administer the oath for interim counselor Andrew Buck. You want to come on up? So if you could just stand facing me. Yep. Any questions before we get going? Okay,
Did we ask him if he accepted?
well, we're gonna do it. It's a plan.
Okay.
All right. Okay, Counselor Buck, if you would raise your right hand. As required by the charter,
As required by the charter,
I, Andrew Buck,
I, Andrew Buck,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I support the Constitution and the laws of the United States
that I support the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the state of Oregon
and the state of Oregon
and the charter, ordinances, and rules of procedure for the city of Springfield,
and the charter, ordinance, and rules of procedure for the city of Springfield,
and that I will faithfully and honorably
and that I will faithfully and honorably
perform the duties of the office that I am about to assume.
perform the duties of the office that I'm about to assume.
Congratulations. Thank you very much.
It's a big deal.
Well, I'm looking, oh,
Oh,
you gotta
do the paperwork. Before he gets to get up here and do votes.
especially from the notary. This is why we planned 10 minutes for this item. Hey. Andrew, bring your family up here. You gotta introduce them. We got 10 minutes.
So tonight I'd like to introduce my family. This is my daughter, Elise. She's a freshman at Thurston. This is Mayor Van Gordon. This is Camden. He is a fifth grader at Ridgeview Elementary. This is my wife, Christine. And
Very nice.
Very nice to meet you too.
yeah, so this is a big deal.
Well.
I don't know the right way.
Here, let me help.
Thank
Like
you.
I've been a professional. In terms of this,
Okay. It's like you've done this before.
a couple times.
Yeah. I will leave those in your capable hands because they're better.
He's gotta work now. He's gonna miss Monday Night Football for all time.
That's okay. You'll lock it down for me, right, bud guy? Thank you, guys. Right there, I'll see.
We're even 5 minutes ahead of schedule. I think that was it. Yes, we were gonna kick everybody out. Congratulations, Andrew. We're happy to have you up here. We're adjourned and then we are going to reconvene in an executive session. So if you're not the appropriate press or staff, we're gonna politely have you wait outside. But we'll have you back. This will only take a couple of minutes. I'm going to call the Springfield City Council work session to order with roll call.
Mayor Van Gordon,
Here.
Counselor Weber. Here. Counselor Mo,
Here.
Counselor Rodley. Here. Counselor Blackwell.
Here.
Counselor Buck
Here.
and Counselor Stout.
Here, thank you. We have three items this evening. A lot of interviews. So the first is Budget Committee interviews with Jessica Mummy. Come on up, Jessica.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council, and welcome, Councilor Buck. My name is Jessica Mummy. I'm the city's Budget and Procurement Manager here this evening for Budget Committee vacancy interviews. On August 25th, the kickoff for recruitment opened and closed on September 26th. We received 7 applications for 4 vacancies. Of those 7 applications, 2 of the applicants are requesting a second term. And it looks like 2 of our applicants have not yet arrived. I just want to do a double check. Jason and Francesca. Fabulous, thank you. Okay, so we just have 1 applicant that has not arrived, and that applicant is Jason Miller that has not yet arrived this evening. So we have 6 applicants here this evening. And they've received the interview questions, and if there's no questions from me, they're ready.
Could you remind us how many appointments are we making this evening?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. We are making 4 appointments.
Okay. And I know we changed the requirement around awards. Could you maybe give us a little bit of guidance? Are we doing awards, or what's the requirements out of the operating procedure?
The statute just requires that you have an equal number of budget committee members to your city council members. The bylaws do not specify that they need to be from a particular ward, although there has been previous councils would try and have representation from each ward. And then you have 2 reapplying persons tonight as well.
So while we're not required to utilize ward, we can consider it
It can be
as
a
a.
factor in
you know,
your deliberations. Sorry to
Thank
cut
you.
you off.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, any questions for Jessica before we have the first? Am I asking all the questions, or are we, why? Don't all rush to yes, all right. I think, Jessica, we're ready for the first person. Okay, I guess I am calling the first person. We'll get this perfected by about the 10th interview. Ruth? Oh, there you are.
Good evening, counselors and mayor.
Good evening. Are you ready for your first question, Ruth?
Yes.
All right. Well, why are you interested in serving on the budget committee?
Well, putting 3 years of investment in it has really opened my eyes to the diverse needs of the community, as well as the challenges of funding and resources. So with that background, I would like to invest another term in order to see the fulfillment of those decisions, to also, for my education, see how things can go full circle, because often what the intention is going into a project or funding or purpose, things change. And so it'd be a great education.
All of the Springfield services seem to have strong support from different areas of the community. It is often necessary to prioritize services for budgetary reasons. How would you go about the task of establishing priorities?
First, I would look at what is committed in the budget and what resources have already been in process. I don't want to undermine what is an investment, but part of what often can happen with fees and budgets is the priority. It could be things that are introduced that are mandated that all of a sudden shift what needs to be in place. So I would want to know that. I'd also want to know if there's a progression of years that'll build into end results. Don't want to undermine that. And if there's an opportunity within the goals of the city that we could take an advantage of, especially if there's funding that we could pursue, I would want to be in support of that as much as possible.
If you were on the budget committee and we're looking at one of the city services to decide how much should be funded through general taxes and how much through specific fees, what questions would you want to answer in order to make your decision?
My understanding of fees is usually you need to know how many users are going to be involved and are you going to capture enough revenue from those fees to make up whatever budget gap? So that's one question. Also, which group is that going to impact? It could be a group that this would be an unfair penalty if they had to pay this fee and they're already paying taxes. So I would want to understand where that mix of budgetary funds and fees would result in meeting our goals.
And how do you think the work of the Budget Committee improves our community?
I think the more of us that know how the city operates, the better. And it's also a role I can advocate when I'm out in the community and my neighbors ask me, why isn't this pothole fixed? I have a good answer because I understand the big picture. And I also want to be an advocate for what the city's doing. So as a budget committee member, I get knowledge and I'm here to serve.
Thank you so much, Ruth. The next person that I have is Francesca. I may need help with the last name. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Why are you interested in serving on the Budget Committee?
Yeah, so I work for Willamette Lane. I just like serving the community through Parks and Recreation. And I want to do more of that in my private life. Also, I am the union treasurer for our local ASME 3512, and I do the purchasing and reconciliation for my team. So I think it's a good match between what I can provide and what I know.
All Springfield services seem to have a strong support for different areas of the community. It's necessary to prioritize budget for budgetary reasons. How would you go about the task of establishing priorities among services?
I think I would look at the data of how many people are using the services, what it costs to operate, and the outcome it provides. I would want to look beyond the volume. Like you can't just say, oh, 5,000 people are using the service because EMS might be less than that, but it's still a necessary service. I would want to factor in long-term benefit, community benefit versus individual benefit, public feedback, and potential consequences for reducing a service.
If you were on the Budget Committee and we're looking at one of the city services to decide how much is funded through taxes or fees, what questions would you ask?
Yeah, I think I would need a better understanding of what is currently funded via specific fees. Like I think the fire department on the current ballot is a specific addition. But from my understanding, things that benefit the community as a whole are probably generally funded, and things that are more individual benefit may be like specific fees. But I don't know for sure. I would want information about the total cost of services currently, if they're looking to expand, and how other jurisdictions structure the same services.
And how do you think the work of the Budget Committee improves our community?
I mean, we all know what's happening in Eugene, and everyone's kind of experiencing budget shortfall right now. I just kind of want to help make sure Springfield stays on the right track, that we don't have to experience that. And I think by providing essential services, it just helps improve the community in general.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, the next person I have on the list is Taylor. And thanks for everybody's patience. Interviews like this, we just sort of fly through them.
They're moving pretty quick. Well, good evening for the mayor and council.
Good evening. Could you tell us why you're interested in serving on the Budget Committee?
Yeah, I'm interested for a few reasons, but I'd say probably the most important is going to be just basic curiosity and willingness to lend a hand. Not that, I mean, I am pretty young, so it's probably not super great at the time, but I have a really good understanding. I run a construction business that runs at a high volume. I did all the funding and all the accounting to get that started. And then now luckily I have a staff that does that for me, but I mean, who had to train them? And that was me. So there's a lot to go to that. And so I think I have a really good understanding of the private side, private sector budgeting. I'm really eager to learn the public side. I'm sure there's a lot more things you have to understand, a lot more. It's not as cut and dry as it is in my world. So I like to apply what I know on the private side and understand the public side. And also, I studied economics at the U of O, so I feel like I have a good understanding at the book side of things, and then actually being out there and actually doing it. And so hopefully I can be a help.
While all Springfield services seem to have strong support from different areas of the community, it is often necessary to prioritize services for budgetary reasons. How would you go about the task of establishing priorities?
Yeah, I mean that's a tough one sometimes. In a perfect world, we'd be able just to fund everything, and that doesn't seem to be the case, and it seems to be more and more not the case as time goes on. So realistically, I think you just got to look at the key elements of what makes your city a great place to live, and that's going to be, in my eyes, the key elements of what keeps it running, and that's going to be your protection. It's going to be your infrastructure, good water, good electrical. You got to focus on the key things that everybody uses to make the city a great place to live. And then you kind of look at those other elements and apply to those. You still want to prioritize things and have an utmost importance, but you gotta have structure. You just never get anything done. So
if you're on the budget committee and we're looking at one of the city services to decide how much should be funded through general taxes and through fees, what questions would you ask?
yeah, questions I think might be more of a case by case basis, but things I would want to know is what's already been done and what's the plan moving forward. Because if you could be serving for 3 years, but this might be a 6-year decision, it might have a lot of works. So you don't really want to impede on what's been happening, but sometimes you might have to, depending on what's going on. And you really got to look at how's that affecting each individual? How does it affect the community as a whole? And how does it affect us economically as a city? So if you take that mindset into the case by case, you're going to have a better understanding and have an ability to make a good judgment call. And hopefully everybody can understand why you're making that decision.
And how do you think the work of the budget committee will improve our community?
Yeah, I actually, the answer I had prepared for this, I just learned that we switched it up and we're not going by awards anymore. I thought it was a really good thing, because you have the ability to give the residents a voice, and if you have a representative per area, they have the opportunity to make those voices heard. And that's something that I think I can be a huge advantage to. I spend a lot of time in the community. I run a business. I'm out there doing a lot, and I always want to be able to help. And so I think having those voices and getting those voices to us, well, may not be me. We'll see how this goes, but with us, and so then we can pass them off to you guys, and you guys make the ultimate judgment call. So I think it's good to present that information even at any structure.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for your time.
The next person I have is Michael Weiss.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
Why are you interested in serving on the budget committee?
Yeah, so I am an eager cheerleader for Springfield. I think it's just one of the best places to live. I think our access to the nature, the forest, the mountains, the rivers is just second to none. And you partner that with a relatively affordable place. I love it here. I'm a cheerleader. I tell everybody about it. My wife says that my dream is to be a professional volunteer. She's probably not wrong. If I could be, I would. I've spent a lot of my time since I've lived here with Lane County Search and Rescue. That's one of my main hobbies outside of professional and work. I also serve on the board of the Northwest Berry Foundation, where we serve on research and promoting grant funding for research in the berry industry throughout Oregon, Washington, BC. And I've served in the North American Blueberry Council on their finance committee. So as I look for ways where I can serve Springfield a little bit better and a little bit more local, to me, the budget committee seems like a natural fit, and I think I'd be a strong candidate for it.
While all of Springfield services seem to have strong support from different areas of the community, it is often necessary to prioritize services for budgetary reasons. How would you go about the task of prioritizing services?
So in prioritizing services, I think it's a classic ROI question. And when you look at ROI, especially in an environment where we're not really looking for a traditional investment or return, the other way to flip it is to look at what happens if we don't do it. And so for that, I think there's four steps I would look at when considering it. The first is for new opportunities, places where we can not choose either or, but to choose both. I think a great example of that is the discussion happening around Eugene Springfield Fire and restructuring that to be more efficient. The second would be then to look at the baseline. What's the minimum viable product to run a city? right? To stay legal and safe and compliant. What does that look like? Anything else that we spend is an investment. And so we want to look at all of that return that we can get for it. The challenge there is how do you compare short-term and long-term investments? The long-term investment of like a well-educated community from having the library and funding it versus short-term investments on a road project. But considering those and finding ways to make sure that we're balancing those equally. And then the last is just making sure that we're reflecting what the community wants and that we're prioritizing the resources towards the services that are most in demand by the community.
Thank you. If you were on the budget committee and were looking at one of the city services to decide how much should be funded through taxes or fees, what questions would you want to have answer to make your decision?
So of course, the first thing we would look at, your total cost, your unit cost, your utilization, those things that are probably already available. I think going a little bit deeper when you consider these is understanding the value of each of those services and a little bit of the price elasticity too, right? So in the value, you can look at a service and decide what type of benefit does it bring? Is it a benefit to the community as a whole, or is it something that benefits just a limited number of individuals that utilize that service? The other type of value we can look at is this a value that is there just because the city can provide it and only the city can provide it, something like building permits? Or is it a value that comes because it's available and accessible at low cost, like the library? Weighing those things against each other and understanding the value of each of these services, those would be one of my top questions. And then followed would be the price elasticity. What happens if that fee goes up? Does it reduce the number of people who can use it? Does it change who can use it? Does it create new administrative challenges for the city? Does it create barriers to utilizing the services? Those sorts of things. And then at the end, we just want to balance those factors against each other and maximize the total value that the city provides to its community.
And how do you think the work of the budget committee will improve our community?
So to be a good steward of the community, you have to be a good steward of its resources. And I think that's where the budget committee comes in. One of the challenging things is reconciling the role of the budget committee, I believe, is reconciling, the black and white needs of running a city compared to the dreams and desires, for the community and what the city could be and all the things it could do. And then against that third leg of just having to have a balanced budget and being able to create a budget that works and it covers the basic needs of a city, but also allows us to grow.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next person I have is Elliot Harwell.
Hello, counselors.
Hello. Thank you for joining us. Why are you interested in serving on the budget committee?
It's going to sound a little silly, but I really love Springfield. Springfield's a great place to live. I moved here 3 years ago, and I don't want to, I work in Eugene, but I'm glad I live on this side of the river. We do things, we do more with a little less here. There's a more approachable atmosphere. There's an understanding that we don't have a ton of money to throw at our problems, so we have to think a little smarter about things. And I like that. And I like this place. It's a safe place for me to live, and I want to give back to my community. Right now, I work as the financial director at a local nonprofit. Before that, I worked as a bookkeeper at a local accounting firm. Before that, I was a professional manager of homeowners associations in California. And the reason I bring that up is because in California, a quarter of Californians live in an HOA. They're kind of like a small mini government where they collect their own taxes, their own dues, in essence. They manage things. And every single year, an elected group of HOA board members have to come together and make a budget. And it was my responsibility as the professional manager of an HOA to look at the historical data, to make recommendations about what the homeowners association could afford, what it shouldn't, what its obligations were versus, in terms of law versus how it needed to spend its money, how it needed to maintain reserves. It's a very particular skill set. And it's one that requires more than just an understanding of the numbers, but actually understanding that budgets are living documents that require compromise and people voicing different concerns. And in that regard, I've got a background in that. and I want to be able to use that to help my community.
Thank you. While all of the Springfield services seem to have strong support from different areas of the community, it is often necessary to prioritize services for budgetary reasons. How would you go about the task of establishing priorities among services?
This answer sounds a little glib, but I would listen, which is to say, the counselors have seen me come and speak on behalf of the library and how I really care about library funding. But I understand that an appointment to this board isn't about advocating for my one personal pet project to make certain it gets funded. In the same way that y'all are elected to represent Springfield, people who are appointed to the various boards and commissions are also representing their neighbors. And one important thing would be for me, I would understand that I'm not just speaking for myself, but speaking for the people I've listened to. Simultaneously, something else that's really important to recognize is that I would listen to the government employees who are advising the committee and presenting information, which is to say these are professional bureaucrats, and I mean bureaucrats in the most laudatory of ways. Their job is to understand the material. Their job is to have that they draw a paycheck so that they can review this information and have good conclusions and recommendations about it. And so a board or a commission like this has this interesting balance of representing the community, but also being outsiders who nonetheless need to take information they receive from government employees and really understand it and appreciate it.
If you're on the budget committee and we're looking at one of the city services to decide how much should be funded through taxes or fees, what questions would you want to have answered?
There's a constant balance when trying to determine fees and what should be paid for a service of being equitable versus being equal. It would be very easy to say that everyone who draws on a service should pay. On the flip side, being equitable is ensuring that the people who can't pay can pay what they can. So I would like to know what members of the community are drawing on these services and what is their socioeconomic standing. Oftentimes you see how SNAP benefits, people who receive SNAP benefits are able to also receive other services from our local government for free. I think that's a very laudatory goal. I think that's a way of acknowledging that people are members of this community, but they might not be that well off. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to, draw on the resources of our government. That's certainly one balance. I'd also like to know the context of what this what the projected lifespan of this project would be. One of the largest, most important things when I was working on HOA budgets was understanding not just your financial standing now, but what it's going to be in 5 or 10 years. And so having historical data about where the government has been and where it is going and what it anticipates those costs to be are things that should be explored before the government sets about taking on a new responsibility.
And how do you think the work of the budget committee will improve our community?
I think I really like democratic government. I really like I like people being able to come together and govern themselves under clear laws. I like the idea of groups of people organizing themselves in ways that ensure that our rights and liberties are given voice. I like the conceit of local government, of just normal people volunteering their time and becoming local area experts on something so that they can help others and help do their part to ensure that this great democratic project that we have survives and thrives. I think the budget committee is an opportunity to hear from lots of different voices who might otherwise not have a chance. They don't need to be necessarily elected, but they are people in the community who are concerned and who care and who want to participate and who want to reflect their own backgrounds in the work of the government. How a government allocates its money and how it chooses what it chooses to spend and what projects it chooses to undertake are they are the most important things that a government can do. They are government. And to have an opportunity to be part of that is a large responsibility. And it's something that's, it's something that people should be honored to be part of.
All right, thank you very much. The next person that I have is Bella.
Hi.
Hello. Why are you interested in serving on the budget committee?
I'm interested in serving because I care deeply about Springfield's long-term fiscal stability and the community impact of every budget decision. I've spent the past 6 months or so studying our city's financial structure and preparing an alternative budget proposal to the task forces that demonstrated how we can close funding gaps without cutting essential services like the library. That process showed me how much thoughtful oversight and creative problem solving can strengthen the trust between residents and their government. As a chief operations officer of a small investments firm, I manage complex budgets and systems every day. But what motivates me most is seeing how financial decisions translate into quality of life for people. I'd like to bring that same discipline and community-centered focus to the city's budget process.
Thank you. All of Springfield services seem to have strong support from different areas of the community. It is often necessary to prioritize these services for budgetary reasons. How would you go about the task of establishing priorities among services?
Yeah, I'd start from the principle that budgets are value statements. They show what we choose to protect. So I'd look at 3 dimensions: essential function, community impact, and long-term return. Essential function means sustaining core services that keep the city operating: safety, utilities, and governance. Community impact asks which programs serve vulnerable populations or provide broad civic value, like education and access. Long-term return looks at whether an investment reduces future costs or strengthens our revenue base. My approach is evidence-based but human-centered. Prioritize what maintains safety and equity today and position Springfield to thrive tomorrow. That's how you move from austerity budgeting to strategic budgeting.
If you were on the budget committee and we're looking at one of the city services to decide how much to be funded through general taxes and how much to be funded through specific fees on customers, what questions would you want to have answered in order to make that decision?
I'd begin by asking 4 key questions. Who benefits? Is the service primarily a public good, like parks or libraries, or a private benefit, like a building permit? Secondly, who can afford to pay? Would a fee structure create inequity or limit access for low-income residents? Third, what's the administrative cost? Sometimes collecting a fee costs more than the revenue it brings in. And lastly, how does this align with our strategic goals? For example, if a program promotes economic development or sustainability, funding it through general revenue might make sense even if it only benefits a specific group. Those questions ensure we're not just balancing numbers, but evaluating fairness, efficiency, and alignment with community priorities.
And how do you think the work of the budget committee improves our community?
The Budget Committee is one of the city's strongest tools for connecting residents' voices with fiscal policy. It improves Springfield by strengthening and bridging the data, by strengthening the bridge between data, policy, and people. It creates a structured space where elected officials, business leaders, and residents can come together to look at the same numbers and talk about what they mean for the city's future. That collaboration builds better budgets and stronger trust. When diverse perspectives sit at the same table, policymakers knowledgeable about governance, business owners keenly aware of economic vitality, and citizens providing insight on lived experiences, we make choices that are more transparent, equitable, and practical. The Budget Committee doesn't just improve our budget, it improves how we work together as a community.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did I see Jason walk in? Oh, there you are.
Sorry, did you call me earlier?
Oh, no, with you not being here yet, we just went down the list. So
Okay.
I wanted to make sure we talked to you if you were here. Why are you interested in serving on the budget committee?
Well, besides being able to chat with Counselor Weber, I've served the last 3 years and gotten to know the council and to see the process. And from the before I entered the budget committee, what my ideas of what it was going to be completely changed. I thought it was going to be, oh yeah, I'll give some input or whatnot, and it's not that. It's the other way. And I found like we learn so much as budget committee members, and then we get to go out into the community and explain to people what's happening with our budget. Our manager staff do such a great job, and so does the council and the mayor of putting this stuff all together. And so when I go out into my community, so we have the videos, and there is press, and we got a new Lookout Eugene in Springfield that's rising up. So there is more communication happening, but I think part of the budget committee is being able to go out into your community and have those conversations with people that aren't as involved, that like to complain about government and complain about taxes, and they don't really realize the situation that we're in. So that's one reason I wanted to come back for another 3 years. I learned so much, and I am able to go back into my community of sports parents and church members and business leaders and owners, and just be able to tell the story of what's happening with Springfield's budget.
While all of Springfield services seem to have strong support from different areas of the community, it is often necessary to prioritize services for budgetary reasons. How would you go about the task of prioritizing services?
Yeah, I strongly believe in prioritizing public safety. The fire and police is something that I strongly believe in. I think we saw down in Los Angeles this last recently with the fires that ripped through there, how important it is not to cut corners when it comes to public safety. I also believe in infrastructure with the roads, but I am keenly aware of how the state is getting involved in mandates. And so it's definitely a interesting game that our management team gets to play with what is mandated to be funded versus what we as a local community feel we would like to fund, and then balancing that with asking the citizens to pay more. So, but I definitely put public safety number one personally, but realize it's a bigger puzzle to put together the whole budget.
If you were on the budget committee and looking at one of the city's services to decide how much to be funded through general taxes and through specific fees, what questions would you ask?
Well, one, I should state that I really don't like fees very much. I think my personal beliefs is general taxes are better. But I do realize that fees are necessary because sometimes a service might go away if we don't just charge fees. But so if we're going to charge a fee, I'm wanting to know, and being part of the budget process, I see that when we have specific fees that need to go to specific areas, it handcuffs our management team in being able to build a budget, because sometimes you have to borrow some from here to pay there. And I mentioned earlier the state mandates. It's just becoming very difficult to fund the things that the citizens want funded because of everything has to be in its own little silo, and we're not able to fund things we need to. But if it comes to fees, I would be asking, is this necessary? Is there general funding available? But if it's going to take from the general fund, then it's going to be coming from something else. So what's going to be cut to fund that? And I would ask, just is charging this fee going to make that thing that we're paying be sustainable?
And how do you think the work of the budget committee will improve our community?
I kind of mentioned it earlier. I think it helps inform through the budget committee going out and preaching or teaching the people that we have connections with. It helps people understand. For example, a big thing that comes up every year is people say, well, don't my taxes pay for this? And you're like, well, if we take all the property taxes, it's not even going to pay for public safety. And so people in our community don't really understand that. And so I think as we are able to help teach people in our community what is going on with the budget, then they are also going to and how the tax structure works. Hopefully we can make changes at the state level that we don't have as many mandates. If the people understand how this thing all works, or might be open to possibly other taxes. I'm more conservative, I'm not a big fan of taxes, but if you don't realize how low of taxes we pay in our community because of the Measure 5 and all that, if you don't understand how that whole structure works, then it's hard for cities to make investments if you can't get the citizens on board.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
And I think that was the last interview that, okay. Jessica's confirming that I have checked everybody off. Okay, so we've got to find 4 recommendations to move to regular session. Counselor Rodley?
We'll start. First, I want to thank everybody for coming out here. This was exciting. This is like the most people we've had apply for budget committee and just diverse perspectives and from different parts of the city. So I'm just like so excited. People want to get involved. I'll tell you my 4.
Okay.
Are you making a list? Okay,
I'm-
I've got Micah, Elliot, Francesca, and Bella on my top one.
Okay, who wants to go next? Counselor Weber.
My choices, and I think that having Jason and Ruth return, having 3 years under their belts is a very, I think it'll be helpful for the committee to have that experience. So for those reasons, Jason and Ruth are 2 of mine, and Micah and Elliot.
Okay. Counselor Mo?
Elliot, Bella, and Ruth and Jason. That's 4. Just do it.
Just, okay. Yes, I would just need your top.
And I want to mention something that I heard. Somebody mentioned mandates coming from the state is what the public wants. But we have to pay for it. We don't want to pay for it that way. If they're going to make us do it, they need to pay for it. And we need to decide whether we want to or not.
Thanks. Go ahead, Counselor Blackwell.
This is really difficult. Thank you, everybody. You're all very well qualified and appreciate you coming out. I, again, or as well as them, chose Jason and Ruth to return. And then I'm really happy to see Ward 4 represented. That was a very tough decision for me on that one. And with Micah and then Taylor. Oops.
Sir Stout.
Jason, Ruth, Taylor, and Elliot.
Jason, Ruth. Okay.
And y'all are amazing.
Yeah, this was one of the best budget committee groups I can remember. Okay, I'm sorry. You got me distracted. I had Jason, Ruth, Taylor, and Elliot. Okay, Counselor Buck.
Thank you. Having been in the interview seat recently, thank you guys all for showing up and doing this. It's not easy, and you guys are all amazing candidates. My 4 are Jason, Taylor, Micah, and Bella.
Jason, turn. Doing a little bit of math. Ladotti's checking my math too. Okay. Jason, Ruth, Elliot. You would be surprised. Okay, so I'm checking the staff with the staff to make sure I have it right. I have Jason, Ruth, Elliot, Micah. Let's make sure we don't have any ties here.
You're getting a nod.
Okay. All right. I'm getting 2 nods. Fantastic group, everybody. Please, if we're going to take these 4 folks and forward them on to the council to approve the nominations, but we have plenty of opportunities that are open, and there are plenty of good spots for us to plug you in. So please check the city website. Like, we could be extremely talented group. We would love to have you volunteer on another committee. All right, thank you. All right. We have the Springfield Police Advisory Committee applicant interviews.
Good evening. My name is Tiffany Monroe. I'm the staff liaison to the Springfield Police Advisory Committee. We currently have 3 neighborhood at large vacancies. These vacancies were created due to the expiration of committee member 4-year terms. All 3 of the positions were eligible for second terms. However, only Jonathan Hayes has reapplied. The city received 6 applications for these open positions. However, this morning, Richard Guile notified me that he is withdrawing his application at this time. So we'll only be interviewing 5 applicants.
Great, and I'm assuming I'm asking the questions again.
Yes, please.
The first applicant is Sephu Balam.
Come on up, Sephu. We are running a little bit late, so since this is the start of another interview panel, I'm just going to ask that you keep your answers as brief as you can. Tiffany, we were doing 3, right? Yep, 3. Perfect. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you, everyone.
What perspective, experience, or expertise would you bring to the Police Advisory Committee?
First and foremost, I'm going to show my appreciation for having me here, for giving me the opportunity to address the mayor and the councilor and everybody in this hall. I mean, it makes me happy to be here, no matter the result of today. I'm happy to be here. According to your question, I bring a lot of experience to the table. I've dedicated 11 years of my life as a public safety officer, about 6 years with Oregon State Penitentiary, correction officer, corporal, and about 2 years as a state police. I do transport inmates across state. And these last 2 years, I've been with Department of Human Services as a child welfare, child protective service. So combining this, I also did a little time as a deputy at Marion County. So I work alongside those officers every time. Being on the aisle of an officer and also as a citizen, I think tonight makes me a better person to kind of advocate for you, sir, and also for the family at large.
Thank you. What is your perception of the Springfield Police Department, and have you had any personal interactions with Springfield PD?
Yes, I've had in a good way, to correct me, everyone. I've had countless interaction with them. I will call them sometimes for family, what we call welfare checks. Let's say a case came in late and I'm with a family right now and I'm supposed to see a child because the case came in as the child is in danger. I have detective I do work with. I will call them and they are very, very professional. they always, always, always go far and above. I wish they get paid more. Let me be honest that. And even if it's 2 a.m., 3 a.m. with a smile on their face, they are very professional. They are very respectful, and they are, I'll call it work in progress, trauma informed, because a lot of things they're doing right now is non-enforcement capacity. So if I have a letter to write, a recommendation, I will, with all my heart, I have nothing negative to say about them.
Thank you. What do you think the most important issues facing the Springfield Police Department are today?
Well, let's talk about staffing. I've been there for the last 8 years. I didn't want to say I didn't have a life, but it's part of the job. I will go to work with the intention of working my 8-hour shift. 30 minutes to the end of my shift, that phone call will come in. God, your relieving officer is not gonna be here today. You're like, okay, thank you. Another 8 hours. And you do that 4 or 5 times a day. Staffing is a big problem. And I always tell my kids, anytime you're driving and you get pulled over, if you have a bottled water, give it to the officer. He's probably on 12-hour shift right now or 14-hour shift right now. And I feel for them. And also, a lot of things right now, because we're having a lot of non-emergency calls right now, being trauma, being crisis. And I work with this family all the time. And a lot of crime that we're having right now is called we call it kind of opportunity, crime of opportunity. People are struggling financially. People don't have food. And this is an area, I think, to me, I will also encourage our police department to be more cautious. Every call that comes in doesn't need use of force. It could be they're hungry. It could be, I mean, a lot is going on right now with drug use, with poverty, with financial constraint. And again, we have this new policing structure right now where, I mean, we maybe the drones technology, and that also can save life, and also that can also help with staffing. So, and maybe better raise, better, I would say salary. Let me put it that way, sir.
What do you think is the most important step the police department could take to promote a positive relationship? And just a brief answer would be great.
Well, the community trust. I will probably go with that. Building a community trust where involvement with schools, throwing a party. I'm not saying they're social workers. I know people are like, oh my God, that guy is a child protective service. It's trying to make an officer to be, no. But the interaction within the community, it helps the officers a lot.
All right. Thank you so much. That was my last question. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
David Floyd, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. How are you?
Thank you. With respective experience or expertise, will you bring the Police Advisory Committee?
I think an open mind. I think that leadership in the community means that you need to be a servant. And so my whole goal is to make sure that I have an open mind with all ranges of the people in the community. And also the big deal for me is I've been on like I was the chairman of the Salvation Army Board for quite a long time. And I saw the interactions of how things worked there and what the police department could do. And I was gracious with it. So I'm going to be short and brief.
Thank you so much. What is your perception of the Springfield Police Department, and have you had any personal interactions?
Yeah, they're very fair. You know, what I like is I'm a big advocate, so you guys know, for the police department. I think it's very important to have them. I think they're tough, fair, very professional. I did the Springfield Police Academy, Citizens Police Academy. It was a great experience. When Tana was here, she got me involved in that. And I thought it was a very important thing to do. And it really opened up my eyes to understand. I've been on the other side of things, so I get it. And I get why we network so well. I'm an advocate for the jail and everything like that.
What do you think the most important issue facing the Springfield PD is today?
Funding.
Okay.
I think that it's, I think it could utilize more equipment, more officers. As the population grows, we need more officers. We do. And I'm an advocate for that. I'm a believer in being able to, I think being a part of an organization, a committee, is how do you get funding for that? How do you do outreach for that? So.
And what do you think the most important step the police department could take to promote a positive relationship with the community is?
Outreach. I think that it's very important to be, driving a car, drive down the road, and that's great. But school involvement, many events involvements, I think it's really important. And again, I'm an advocate for that. I'd be out promoting the Springfield Police Department.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Jonathan Hayes, please.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Perspective, experience, or expertise would you bring to the Police Advisory Committee?
I am an incumbent member of this committee. Also have experience with corrections. I work for the TSA. I'm a firefighter, but my degrees are actually in criminal justice. So I am able to bring a different perspective. I'm also exposed to a lot of different demographics in the community. So I see a lot of different needs. So I think I have a broad perspective of our community at large.
And what's your perception of the Springfield Police Department? And have you had any personal interactions with the PD?
I think there's a very professional, progressive department, as indicated by the accreditation that we achieved about a year ago today. We went through this detailed process to get accredited, which shows our dedication to training and being on the cutting edge of law enforcement. As far as personal exposure to the police, I mostly interact with them at work. We used to have motor officers stop by Station 3 and hang out with us. We always try to provide a safe place for them to go. Roads get cold out there sometimes. Also at work, I was involved with the officer-involved shooting on Gateway Boulevard recently, as well as multiple traffic stops and things like that. That's my primary exposure.
And what do you think the most important issues facing the Springfield PD are today?
I think the most important issues are protecting our citizens in this unstable political environment when at a drop of a dime, things can go way, way off track. Also, officer safety, including their mental health, recruiting, retention, making this a destination department versus training folks up to go somewhere else. I think that's very important. Also, gaining public trust so that we can deploy new innovative measures so they don't think that we're, trying to sneak something by them.
And what do you think the most important steps you could take, the PD could take to promote a positive relationship with the community is?
I think continuing to develop a inclusive, engaging department that uses transparency as a pathway to citizen understanding would be a very good step. Events like the Public Safety Days that we just had at Jerry's recently, where we had a lot of different members of the community out there, public safety community, and seeking out well-qualified applicants and candidates that reflect the community they serve. I'm not talking about the traditional people that look like me. I'm talking about people that share the same values that we do.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Richard Jones.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, councilors.
Hello. Perspective, experience, or expertise would you bring to the Police Advisory Committee?
So I have about 33 years of law enforcement experience. Virtually all of that at the Springfield Police Department. I retired as the Professional Standards and Training Lieutenant in 2018. I came back in a non-law enforcement role in like 2022 for about a year and a half to assist when staffing was down with vehicle maintenance, fleet management, and equipment. And then when they got staffing back up, that funding went away, was staffed on a vacant position. And so I have all of that experience, pretty well rounded in a lot of different roles within the police department during my course of career, and many different community events that I took care of also.
And what is your perception of the Springfield PD?
The police department's full of very professional men and women, highly trained, very experienced. I have a high perception of all of them. I appreciate all of them. As far as like my own personal experiences with the police department, ironically, I was a victim of a burglary a few years ago in my home here in Springfield, and it was investigated by the detectives at the Springfield Police Department, who were able to serve a search warrant and recover a lot of our property and make arrests and stuff. And so, you know, my professional interactions are many, but that was my personal as a citizen reaction.
Yeah, what do you think the most important issue facing the Springfield PD today is?
Most important, I think, is staffing and recruiting. So it's been tough to try and get people to apply and to hire police officers. And so, and kind of the trickle down effect that results in, you know, a lot of overtime, which affects budget and also kind of affects the livability for officers.
And do you think the most important step the PD could take to promote a positive relationship with the Springfield community is?
Well, transparency is important. And along with transparency, also people, the police department being out in the community, having community events, going to the schools, whenever they have any of those kind of things that really helps out the police department's perception with the community.
Thank you so much. Savannah?
Councilors, Mayor, good evening.
Thank you for joining us. What perspective or experience will you bring to the Police Advisory Committee?
I have a Master's of Public Administration with a focus in strategic planning and program evaluation. And so my education and professional background are largely focused on that type of programmatic assessment and policy work and providing feedback. I've also been the vice chair or chair of the Community Development Advisory Committee for 4 years and have really enjoyed participating. I'm an active member of our community and have really benefited personally and professionally from that involvement.
What's your perception of the Springfield PD?
I think that Springfield Police Department has a lot of opportunity in the same way that all of Springfield does. We have a lot of ability to grow in intentional ways, especially with SPD having new leadership and having these new perspectives in those important roles. We have a lot of opportunity to be developing in ways that are very intentional and focused right now.
I think our most important issues facing the Springfield Police Department today are?
Budget and recruitment. I don't think it's news to anyone that there's a budget crisis for just about any public service. And I think that'll be an area that the SPD needs to handle very intentionally moving forward.
I think are the most important steps the PD could take to promote a positive relationship with the city community is?
I think that our community generally recognizes the work that SPD does currently, and that promoting that public trust and that communication with our community is one of the most important things. But generally, we know what our call response times are like. We see the work that's being done. So just maintaining that relationship moving forward is, I think, going to be the biggest component for SPD.
All right. Thank you so much.
You all.
Okay, we have 3 folks. So if I could get three names, I don't know if Beth, you want to start this time? We can work through this in a more organized fashion.
Thank you for making that very difficult once again. Excellent candidates here. I have Jonathan Hayes, Sifu, and my third one, Richard Jones.
Steve.
Okay, I misunderstood what you said. Safeview, Jonathan Hayes and Richard Jones.
Councilor Rodman.
I've got Jonathan Hayes, Sefu, and Savannah.
Okay. Councilor Weber.
Jonathan, Richard, and David.
Jonathan, Richard, and Savannah.
Councilor Buck.
Sifu, David, and Jonathan. All very good candidates. Thank you, everyone.
Councilor Jonathan. As fast as I can. The little matrix thing is two. Steve, this is your third one. Can you give me your three again? Yeah, I have seafood. Okay, that was my missing piece of information. Okay, so I have Sifu, Jonathan, and Richard. Are we? Okay, look, I'm getting head nods. All right. Again, a great pool. Really appreciate everybody coming out. Thank you so much for joining us. We're only 20 minutes behind. Come on, Nathan. We have the payroll tax implementation framework and council direction.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council, and welcome Councilor Buck. With tonight's work session, you're jumping right into the deep end, so I hope you're ready. Tonight's conversation is a continuation of the conversation we started on September 2nd in a work session around the payroll tax. The payroll tax was one of 9 recommendations from the task force. And just some background on that, the recommendation was that a payroll tax be evenly split between the employer and the employee, that it be simple to understand and administer, no tiered rates or exemptions, and that there be guardrails to protect the taxpayers. So with that background, we provided you with the range of options to consider in that work session, and the guidance coming out of that was that it would be a rate of 0.1% paid by both and each the employer and the employee, that it be paid on gross wages with only legally required exclusions, that it applies to employers located within Springfield city limits, that's a subjectivity, and that it have annual reporting to council and community and no changes to the program for the first 3 years after implementation, followed by a formal conversation on its efficacy. And just with that, when we say no changes, I mean, assuming that there's no major issues or that it's not broken. Of course, if there was a major issue, we would likely revisit that before then. So I took that guidance and modeled a 0.1% payroll tax. And so that payroll tax, again, was based on gross wages to both applied to both equally to employees and the employers. It would generate a net revenue of approximately $2.9 million in fiscal year 27. Each additional 0.01, and that was one of the questions that's been asked throughout this process, would generate an additional $400,000 annually. The key assumptions for that was 4.1% wage growth, and that's based on the Department of Revenue's experience over the last 10 years. No pre-tax deductions. We estimated it would be about $600,000 to administer this program. And then we have initial compliance of 75%. Our kind of expectations based on Eugene's experience is that it would be probably about 4 to 5 years to get up to full compliance, which is in the low 90%. At full compliance, that would be an additional $700,000 annually. And we, again, we think that would be achieved by 2032. And feel free to ask questions at any point throughout. All right, so.
Councilor Mo.
Clarification. 0.1% paid by both the employer and employee. Is that each? Or
Each.
Okay, so it's a 0.2.
Yes,
Okay.
you could look at it as a 0.2. All right, and that's awfully small. So I don't know if the audience is going to be able to see that 5-year forecast. You've seen many 5-year forecasts over the years. And what I've done here is layered in all of the task force recommendations that actually have a dollar impact. And specifically what's different about this one, because I had another version of this in front of you, I think it was back in June, is this one's been updated to reflect the gross wages. So fiscal years 27 through fiscal year 31, looking kind of mid graph, the row with the first row of red numbers, which mean a deficit spend. You can see that it's a pretty significant deficit spend that grows over the course of those 5 years. Feel pretty comfortable with this forecast in that, really, as I've mentioned before, there's a bias in budgeting sometimes to underestimate revenues and overestimate expenditures. I'm really focused on not bringing that bias into our forecast. The revenue projections in there, I feel, are really tight. On the expenditure side, it's probably a little more conservative than it has been in the past, only because inflation has remained stubbornly higher than the feds would like. And I'm just not convinced that it's been beaten. And so I'm taking that, not the kind of inflation we've experienced over the past few years, but I have some higher estimates in there on the expenditure side, just kind of, what I think is going to happen. I don't see our experience being worse than this, but I also don't expect it to be significantly better than this. If so, I feel like this is a good forecast really to use in terms of making kind of long-term decisions. So looking at the task force recommendations, again, the library cut of $500,000. The reason it grows in this forecast is because it's actually in the budget right now in all those years, and it's growing by inflation. And so I have to kind of pull it back out with inflationary growth. The payroll tax in the first year, that represents if you were to make a decision and we were to have something in place, sometime shortly after the first of the year, and we give ourselves a year to implement, we'd be looking at going live in January of 2027. It's a quarterly reporting is most likely how we would do it. So we wouldn't see the first revenues coming in until April, and that would include revenues collected over the period of January through March of 27. So that represents just a single quarter worth of revenue receipts. By fiscal year 28, though, we have the a full year's worth of revenue and thereafter. The fire levy is currently on the ballot for next Tuesday, actually. I believe, is that correct? And so that is the revenue that would come in if that passes, additional revenue above what we've historically experienced, at least with our most recent levy rate. And then the police levy will be in discussions. We'll be bringing it to you sometime in the spring of 27. And if we move forward with that, that would be going on the ballot November 27 to be implemented beginning in fiscal year 29. And that reflects if we were to increase it to for the police levy to pay indirects, which it currently does not. And then looking at what that does to our bottom line, starting with fiscal year 27, again, because the payroll tax, just timing reasons, has come in a little later than would be ideal. We have a significant deficit spend. But even if we were to accept that deficit, and there are occasions where a deficit spend is acceptable, if you look at that ending reserve, it's at 27%. It is above our 25% floor that we have for an ending reserve. So it's still up in that healthy range. Looking at fiscal year 28 and 29 to have a number that low, in a $400,000 deficit spend, 2 years out, that is, we can bridge that gap without a lot of pain. And so to me, that is very positive. We get into 30 and 31, just shy of $1 million each. It's a big number, but it's far enough out there. A lot can happen between now and then, and we've got a nice kind of time frame to start working on addressing that right now. So I look at this forecast, and with those task force recommendations, it doesn't solve all of our problems. I don't think the idea is to give us this blank check. It still requires us to have a sharp pencil and kind of tighten our belt, but it is something we actually can work with while we start to implement other things such as economic development initiatives. And so bring these forecasts to you here annually. I want to give you some time on this slide to ask questions.
I have two quick questions, and then I will open it up. Is our ending balance percentage, that is guidance for bonding, right? That we
Correct. Our policy used to be 20% was, and that it's a number that, over the years, best practices, the GFOA has, changed it. But in our most recent bonding experience, one of the things we heard back in our rating was they liked the fact that our reserve was over 25%, that if it was ever to go below 25%, that it could potentially impact the city's rating. It's difficult to get that rating higher. I'll be honest, it's not difficult to have it fall on you. And so we need to be on top of that and make sure that we maintain that 25% balance.
And the second question I had, and then I'll open it up to the group. Even though we're talking specifically about the fiscal stability task force, but this is really our fall look at what the forecast would be. So we're checking off that discussion now that you've showed us our 5-year forecast.
Yeah, typically we would have a work session just dedicated to our 5-year forecast. This one just happened to get folded into our payroll tax conversation this year.
Perfect. All right. Any questions about the forecast? Go ahead, Councilor Blackwell.
Thank you. I just have a question when you mentioned the expenditures that you looked at those and thought that they were probably going to be higher than you estimated them higher. What do you use to get there? I mean, what percentage rate are you looking at today's inflation rate? And then how did you estimate those higher?
So a number of factors. So earlier, I think, and I gotta be careful because it was exact, so I won't say anything that would, but Che and I spent a lot of time together talking about what's happening out there in the market and what we're experiencing and what we can expect. And so he helps me in terms of informing what those are. So we're looking at just historical, in a much larger time frame than just the inflation that we experienced over the pandemic years. We're looking at kind of other agencies and what they're paying and what we're seeing them settle with their contracts. Sometimes they're ahead of us. And so we get to kind of see what's happening there. So there's a lot of different factors that are going into that.
All right. Other questions? Go ahead, Councilor Stout.
Just refresh me one more time. What is our timeline on all of this for like a concrete decision? One of the reasons I'm asking is I'm interested to know how the fire governance conversation is going to go.
Okay. And actually that is going to be decided potentially tonight. I'm going to get about 2 slides further and I'm going to ask you that question.
So we'll come back to it.
Proceed. All right. And so just coming back to the guardrails, this is something that the task force, it was very important to them that something not be put in place that could just, be changed, annually, or, someone could just unilaterally make that decision. And so a lot of thought went into the guardrails. Again, this would happen, and I could have probably mentioned earlier on a slide, there's a lot that came in that task force recommendation, and it had such a brief summary up there of what it was. But I think another kind of quality they were striving for was a rate that was low enough that you could just implement it, that wouldn't have a significant impact on the taxpayer or on the businesses. And so that 0.1%, when we're looking at that, that's 1/1000th, on a salary of annual salary of $50,000 a year, you'd be paying $50 annually in a payroll tax. And so, when they kind of, the 0.1 just happened to work out for us, but they focused on that because they felt it was a low enough rate that it could just be implemented. But through the process of an ordinance, then the only way it could be changed, in that ordinance, you can build in your guardrails, and then the only way it could be changed again is through another ordinance. And I think I'm getting that correct. Yep. No rate increases or structural changes for 3 years unless it's broken, unless something is really not working. Required annual reporting to the council and the public, reporting back on what our experience is and how that money is being used. You saw in that forecast that the deficit spend starts to climb in those outer years. If we had a windfall in the earlier years, we could set those dollars aside to help address those outer years, and that would be part of the annual reporting to you. And then a formal review after year 3 to assess the efficacy of this. The other thing too, I didn't mention is that since that last work session, staff has also been engaging the business community with the structure that you recommended from that earlier work session. And I'm going to let the mayor speak to that some. I don't know if you want to do that now or a little later.
I think I could just add briefly what our conversation with the business community has been. We've had several one-on-one meetings with folks or group meetings. Generally, I would describe people as still curious. Obviously, they understand that the technical issue that we're facing, but understand why we came to the solution. May not be super thrilled with additional taxes from a competitive perspective, but there was definitely a lot of appreciation with how transparent we're being about this challenge, and basically just a lot of clarification. The 2 things that they did ask for from us, well, 3 things, were as simple as possible from an administrative perspective. There was a lot of conversation about not just worried about the amount, but worried about how the cost to administer it. Getting really clear about how we as a government are paying it, which is, a reporting question, and coming back to this idea that said that, like, hey, could you keep the structure as consistent as possible for at least 3 years to give yourself an opportunity to, so that we're not creating any undue change in the system.
And we'll continue to engage the business community. That is ongoing. We're just getting started with that. And the other thing that I've heard in terms of feedback is if we get to a point where we've decided to move forward with it, to engage their payroll professionals and finance folks, and we're open to really hearing the feedback and kind of doing this in a way that works for everybody. We see them as partners in this.
And I think the vision, my perspective on that is that's a critical part to being successful. As we go, because this is going to take like a year, and I am perfectly, like, that does not mean that's a council committee. That is like the staff uses stakeholder committees all the time, but I would think we would just give them a head nod to kind of go forth and do and keep that conversation going.
So that brings us to next steps. My question for you is, do you have all the information that you need to make a decision, and/or are you ready to proceed with a payroll tax?
This is a chance to have some additional conversation. I think the way this would go is whatever we want to do to go forward, we would schedule a public hearing in early December. It's scheduled. I don't have the date right in front of me. But that would give us a chance to hear more directly from the public, discuss, finalize, and at the end of that meeting, we wouldn't be implementing the payroll tax. We would be directing the staff to start that work. So we would be working on implementing all through the next year. All right, Councilor Weber.
Thank you, Nathan. I've heard enough, I think, for myself to have comfort with moving this forward. I think it's a reasonable request, and I think we're working really hard to engage all of the members of our community that are going to be impacted by this, and I'm supportive of moving forward to a public hearing.
Councilor Stout.
I'm supportive of moving forward to a public hearing. I do want to make sure that as council, we have the opportunity to kind of tweak the final number a little bit to make sure we have the conversations about fire, library, et cetera. And I think that has to be done in conjunction with the public hearing. Thank you.
Okay. And could you tell me more, Councilor Stout, just so we're all on the same page about the fire question?
I'm concerned, I mean, depending on whatever shakes out with fire governance, I'm concerned about a potential additional need on top of what we're asking for voters from the current levy. So if for whatever reason, the structure we ultimately agreed to that is most beneficial for Springfield exceeds what is brought in by the levy and the general funds, this is one of the few options we have to actually fund our fire department. And I think that's an absolutely crucial piece of the pie. And also, I'll just comment, seeing that 0.01, help me get me this right, 0.01% is $400,000 in revenue. I would not be remiss to say that that's a pretty nice chunk of change that could be applied very quickly. And I mentioned this in the side to my other counselors to plug a hole in our library funding.
I think the first question really around fire, like the fire issue, I think is real. It's time, like it is going to be out there in the next 4 or 5 years. Neil, do you want to jump in and
just mention we have a hold on November 10th to get an update on governance, so that should give us a little bit more information.
So is it fair to say, based on the current schedule, that we're like the two government agencies may not have a decision by the first part of December?
That's correct.
Okay, so here's the way I'm thinking about it, and we do not have to solve this tonight, is that especially with this kind of 3-year conversation going out there, there's going to be room and space to have a conversation around fire once we get to the whatever the next version is going to be. So from my perspective, I don't know that we've got to have that answer to get us through December, but we will have to have that answer in relation to the, either payroll tax or potential other funding long term. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so this is the last time we're seeing this before December.
Correct. And I believe it's scheduled for December 8th.
Okay.
In a regular session.
And if you think about implementation, do we have to be solid about the rate on that December date, or could that conversation sort of mature over time?
That conversation could still mature. I think that if we want to meet a implementation timeline of January 1st, 27, and you can see from that 5-year forecast why that would matter, we would probably want to have, if you were to go forward with an ordinance, to have that ordinance, ready for adoption sometime, probably no later than February, March.
Okay. Yeah. And I think one of the important things from this conversation is I know the timing and length of time, and this is fairly complex, is I think we just want to make sure we're super clear that we're not going to go before, like whatever date we choose, we need to say we're not going to go before that date, right? All certainty and clarity is very important here. All right. I think we have all the questions. Hey, I was wondering what the last slide was. I thought you might have another question there.
No.
You have everything you need?
I have everything I need.
Thank you so much. We are adjourned, and then we are going to reconfigure the room for the CETA meeting, which I believe is an executive. It is an executive session first.